So these goats are the very relaxed kind. They're trained. Apparently, goats or any animal are animals of routine, and their routine is to have no particular routine. They get milked sometimes in the morning, and this time of the year it's not a big deal because their udders aren't full, they're not in discomfort, and the outside environment is so damp that I won't put them out on the grass until it's a little bit dried off, hopefully. Which means goats only come into season or only fertile in winter or when the days are fairly short, so usually starts April or so and goes to about September. And they come in season every 3 weeks and make it very well known that they would love to meet the prince of their dreams. So they yell out and they wander about and they wriggle their tails. So I decided this year not to breed the goats. They're quite happily milking through winter and quite happily milking through several seasons. And I don't need so many replacement goats. And then I don't have to make the decision what to do with the young ones. And it's also I find it's quite hard on the females, it's quite hard on the does when they have kidded. That's when often they have a womb burden or health-wise, condition-wise, they really go downhill. So it's really important around kidding time to support them super well. So we didn't really want to have kids this coming spring. So the girls will yell out for their prince in vain. Come on then, Pearly. I used to wash udders and bring an extra bucket for washing. I found that only distributes anything slimy. This environment is pretty clean, and with just 2 goats, I don't think it's helpful to wash them. I also don't use a teat spray or get your bum away. Go on. I also don't use a teat spray or any disinfectant on the udder. And I just give it a couple of, you can step on your pot if you like. I give it a couple of squeezes onto the ground, and then the rest goes in the pot. And she is chewing her cud, which means she is perfectly happy with being milked and she's enjoying that sensation. And getting the milk itself, I'm trying to imitate what a goat kid would do. And a goat kid would latch onto the teat, and often they have twins or triplets, so she could have 2 kids on her udder at the same time. And the goat kids take the teat into their mouth and squeeze it from the top to the bottom with their tongue against the roof of their mouth. Goat kids also sort of bash into the udder. They bash upwards rather than pulling on the udder because they're at that height. So I'm not pulling on the udder. Oh, there you go on your pot. That's good. I'm not pulling on the udder. If anything, I'm closing the teat at the top and bringing my fingers to squeeze out what is in the teat. But if anything, I'm slightly pushing up rather than pulling on the udder. There's a certain time of letdown in all mammals, humans do it as well as goats, that when the milk flow is activated by, some cow sheds use music or whatever sort of trigger point, and it is usually the baby latching on or the goat kids bashing into the other and latching on, that releases some hormones in the goats that makes the release of the milk easier. And as far as I remember, that lasts for about 4 minutes. So milking relatively swiftly using this period of letdown, it's a nice sensation for the goat. Or I suppose it's a nice sensation for the goat because I experienced it breastfeeding, and it is a nice sensation breastfeeding. And yeah, my assumption or my story is that it is a nice sensation because I can see her happily chewing her cud and quite happily coming for milking. So Fern looks a little bit shaggy in her coat. In her winter coat, she has all sorts of curly bits, and in the summer coat, she has the same colouring but is completely smooth. So it's quite a change from winter coat to summer coat on her look. I sniff my goats regularly because I have the story that I can smell if they're wormy or something isn't quite right. So with them smelling quite neutral, just nicely animal and not that goaty, I know that they're healthy and not carrying a worm burden. Another good sign for a worm burden, or if they're carrying worms, is if on the backbone, if the hair stands up and curls back, and this one isn't curling back, it's standing up, but that's her frizziness of coat. Could be a paleness under the eyes. So if that red under the eyes is very pale, that could be the sign for worm burden, and also in their mouth. If the inside of their mouth is very pale. You don't like mouth inspections, eh? So Fern has horns. A total no-no with goats is grabbing them by the horns. Grabbing them by the horns or going to the forehead or to the head is an invitation for a little fisticuff. And goats just love a little tussle. I give them a massage on the back body or on the neck, and they're really enjoying that. But anything to do with sort of pushing against their forehead is an invitation to have a little bit of a fisticuff. And I've never been pushed by a goat or interacted with a goat in that kind of way, because they just know from little on that this is not what we do together. And now they're a little bit restless, going, come on, don't chat around, it's now breakfast time. Give us something to eat. And Pearl enjoys being milked while she's eating, so this is a time where some food comes on. And I give them lucerne chaff with oil, and that gives them some extra protein, and it gives them a good boost for condition. Yes, you get some. I strip her udder of any hair that might be loose. Milk a couple of strips onto the floor, and she has nice big teats, and it's very, very easy to milk. I try and get in contact or stay in contact with the animal, especially when they're in season, when they feel quite spunky. and her teeth are really nice and open, so any little move that I do with my hand results in a good amount of milk. And I milk her out with under a minute. Cows are quite a bit harder to milk. Their other tissue is firmer, and you just need a lot firmer grip. But goats, especially if they have nice open teats, are very easy to milk. And with this one I imitate again the kit to get the hind milk, so I bash around the udder a little bit. The fore milk is the milk with less fat and more water, and the hind milk has the more fat, so that is the more hunger. The first milk is for the thirst, and the hind milk is for the hunger. So the goat kid, still not satisfied with the first milk, will go like this to the mum, give me some more, and then will be some hind milk with a higher fat content. The milk changes through the season, and the milk changes also with the age of the animal. The milk has slightly different no, thank you. The milk has slightly different components when the goat kids are really little, because they need, the milk is sweeter. When they're really little, then the milk changes slightly through the aging of the kids and the milking, the length of milking. Now you can have your breakfast. Now you can go for it, me lady. So here again, there is the hair is smooth on the backbone, which means no major worm burden. So goats always have worms, but I try with my management of them, I try to have a minimal worm burden that they encounter, and I haven't used any chemical wormers for years, so that is quite successful. And it has a lot to do with the health of the soil and how much life is in the soil on where they're grazing, and also not having them out on wet grass in warm weather conditions, because that's when the worm larvae climbs up on the grasses and they ingest more of the larvae. So wet and warm, I rather keep them in the shed for longer until things have dried off, and I feed them branches, hay. So with the horns you need to watch a little bit more to not be above the horns, because without her wanting to do anything with her horns, if her head suddenly comes up, it could collide with my head. And I don't know, in New Zealand dairy goats are not supposed to have horns. And they get their horns burned out, or the horn buds burned out as kids at 5 days old. Quite a short and very brutal procedure. The horns are an extension of the sinus system, and there is definitely more well, I don't have any proof for it, but you're taking part of the sinus system away from an animal, which will have some kind of consequence, whatever the consequence is. I got Pearl already with her horns burned off. I got her as a young goat, but that was done with her. And Fern didn't have it done. I learned cheese making and worked with goats in France. And when I was there, which was in the 90s, nobody even had the idea of taking horns off goats. Goats have got horns, and that's how it is. And they're managing herds of 30, 50, 100 goats easy with horns. And in New Zealand as a total thing, and probably the States and some other countries as well, that if you want to show a goat in a dairy goat competition, you straight away disqualified if the goat has horns, or you won't win any prizes, even best udder or best milk yield or something like that. They won't give you any top honours if the goat has horns, because dairy goats apparently don't have horns, but they do.